Hi everyone, my name is Melissa van Dijk and today I want to talk about something very interesting that I'm sure many of you have experienced as well, which is the idea that you should always gently pat your skin dry instead of rubbing it with a towel. We are often told to gently pat our skin dry after washing or rinsing, because otherwise it might irritate the skin or damage it over time. But if you think about it a bit more, it raises the question, what is actually happening when you rub your skin with a towel? Because in reality, you're not just drying your skin, you're also removing things from the surface. You're removing leftover oil, small amounts of dead skin cells, or anything that is loosely sitting on top. So rubbing is not just harsher, it's also more effective in terms of actually clearing the surface. Now, if you compare that to patting the skin dry, you're mostly just removing the water. But a lot of what's on the surface stays there. And that's where I think that things get interesting. Because if more stays on the skin, you're more likely to feel like your skin needs something afterwards. Maybe it feels a bit oily or uneven or not completely clean. And then what usually happens is that you reach for a product. Now I have to say I had a bit of a mixed experience with this myself. I followed this advice for a very long time without really questioning it. But at the same time I kept noticing something else. My husband does the complete opposite. He jumps into the shower, uses water, gets out and just rubs his face dry with a towel. Not extremely aggressively, but definitely not gently patting either, and he has no issues at all. If his skin flakes a bit, he just goes over it with a towel, applies a bit more pressure and it's gone. And that really made me think, because if something was truly that damaging or problematic, you would expect to see clear consequences. But in reality, you often don't. And I have to say, advice like this is often presented as purely skin-friendly or protective. And I used to give the same advice myself for exactly that reason. But at the same time, it also creates a situation where using additional products becomes more likely. And I'm not saying that patting your skin is wrong. Of course, if you're very aggressive with a towel, that's not a great idea either. But the idea that you should never rub your skin at all and always only pat it is a lot more absolute than it needs to be, because your skin is not that fragile. It's designed to handle friction. You touch your face, you wash it, you live in an environment where things constantly come into contact with your skin. So the idea that a normal towel would somehow damage it in a meaningful way is a bit exaggerated. And at the same time, rubbing your skin with a towel can actually help remove more from the surface. Which also means you might not feel the need to add something afterwards. So again, it comes back to the same pattern. Instead of asking what your skin actually needs in that moment, you're following a rule. And that rule shapes what you do next. And once you start looking at it that way, you begin to notice how many of these small recommendations exist that all seem harmless on their own, but together they create a routine that keeps adding more and more steps. And at some point, you have to ask yourself, is it really about what your skin needs, or is it also shaping how you use products? And I will just leave that thought with you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!